All right, as promised, this is a coding video, and in this video, we're going to look at how to build a component library in React using Cursor, actually. Now, for those of you who don't know, Cursor is an AI-powered text editor. It actually is a fork of VS Code, and it uses different models that you can actually choose to infuse productivity for you in terms of autocomplete on steroids if you compare it to something like GitHub Copilot, and it also incorporates chat as a separate window, as you can see here to the right, where you can actually talk to and ask for suggestions and improvements by the model that you choose. You can see here we have different models that you can choose from. So we're going to use Cursor as our editor, and we're going to build a component library in React. As you can see here, we have a quick little to-do or overview of what we're going to be doing. The actual setup is going to be using Vite for what I call a playground. The playground is going to be our little testing environment where we actually see our components that we build so that we can actually test them out a little bit. It's a much more cheap man's version of Storybook, as we don't need Storybook right now. In the beginning, we're going to use Rollup actually specifically. For those of you who don't know, Vite actually uses Rollup in the background or behind the scenes. And we're going to use Rollup specifically because Vite does have a library mode where you can actually run Vite build as a library in library mode, where it optimizes the build for that. But configuring it specifically, or configuring Rollup, is tricky. So we're going to use Rollup specifically for the build. It makes it a lot easier to customize our build to the way we want it. We're also going to use something called vanilla extract for our CSS. Now, for those of you who don't know what vanilla extract is actually a really cool tool. It's I would call it's a preprocessor, of course. So it's a serial runtime one. It runs on the build and it creates classes, much like Tailwind does, but it is TypeScript powered. So you're using the power of TypeScript and type safety together with the component to make it really easy to create systemized styles, which I really like. And it's basically a build for building component libraries, or at least design system based applications and style frameworks. So that's what we're going to be using today. Back to our little to-do. We're going to create one component. It's going to be a button component. It's a classic one. I have created a very simple design in Figma. It looks like this. We have a light version and a dark version, and 3 different styles for it: a primary, secondary, and tertiary version, different sizes, and so on. So it's a very simple classic button style. So you get sort of a taste for building a component in how it usually looks like. And we're going to use Inter as our font from Google Fonts. So we're not going to do anything fancy, font files or anything like that, just classic, simple stuff. We're going to build in support for themes. We're going to use build a theme provider so you can switch between dark mode and light mode. And finally, we're going to install the component library, in a Next.js app instance from the repository that I've created in GitHub. So you can create your own repository and install it and get it working. It's going to be very simple. It's not going to be publishing it on like npm or anything like that. We're just going to keep it really simple so you guys can get the setup rolling, and then based on what kind of environment or use case you're working in, you can adapt this to if you're going to publish it on npm, or maybe something like a hosted registry like Nexus, or maybe GitHub or whatever. And finally, we're going to demonstrate how to use symlink locally, so you can test and build locally with a consumer application and your library in parallel on your computer. So with that said, without further ado, let's get going. These are the repositories dependencies that we're going to be installing in order to get this rolling. So I figured we would do that right now. Okay. So I have set up a repository, as I said, in GitHub. I call it component library. You can call it whatever you want. Obviously, it's a clean repository. There's only readme license and gitignore. Gitignore is the classic node template, so it has the classics in it. Nothing fancy. And we're going to be installing all of these dependencies. Now, I'm going to be using pnpm because I like it. It's fast. It uses caching and stuff, so I don't have to deal with npm, the slowness of npm. So first of all, we're going to npm init. So we create a classic package.json file where we have the name. We can just clean this up a little bit, remove the main, can remove the test script. It's an MIT license. Author can be removed, keywords can be removed, scripts is the only thing that we really need here. That's it. Next, we're going to be installing for actually dev dependencies, all of these. So just copy paste that. I need to, damn it. Maybe Cursor can help us with this. See if it figures it out. You can actually do most of your logic for you. I'm not sure if it understands what I'm trying to do here. Anyway, we're just gonna grab these as a one-liner. Quick. You'll of course be able to grab these dependencies from the actual repository in GitHub, so you don't have to install them one by one. Cool, we got all the dependencies installed. So that means that we have a Vite, Vite installed, for example. So we're going to start by creating a playground. So we have our playground folder. This is going to be our source code for the playground. And in our root, we're going to have to install or set up an index.html file. And this is going to be where the actual app, the playground runs. It's just a source for the playground, so it's nothing fancy. So we're going to get some classic HTML setup here. Let's see, let's indent this correctly. Looks a bit bad. Remove this. We're going to need a root, and we're going to need a classic module, but we're going to use playground, and we're going to call it main instead, because that's how I like to do it. And that's pretty much it. We don't need anything else there. In our playground, then we're going to create first an app.tsx. This is actually the app that we're going to be sort of working in. This is our playground. So it's going to be super simple. We're just going to do export default function app, and we can of course just return hello world. Nothing more than that. It doesn't have to be more than that right now. Next, we're going to just create that main.tsx file, and this is going to be our mounting point for our app. So first of all, let's look at the dependencies. We're going to need strict mode, because I want to run the app in strict mode. And we're going to need to create root and import the app. Let's just change that to regular app. There's no point in doing this. I'm not sure why it suggested that. We can just do create root, get the app like that. Yeah, that looks good. It's going to complain a little bit, but this is just essentially because of our missing tsconfig. So after we've done this, let's just create the Vite type file. So it's vite.env.d.ts. And this essentially just tells us that this is a Vite environment. So it references the Vite client here. That's all we need for the playground. That's it. Next, let's just create that tsconfig file. And our tsconfig file is going to be, there's actually going to be two of them. One is going to be for the playground, and the other is going to be specifically for the build. So they're going to be basically the same, but it's going to be different inclusions. So include both playground and lib in this one, and then in the build, we're going to exclude the playground. So we're only going to build the lib folder. But first, let's just look at compiler options. We can use ES21. Yeah, we're going to use module resolution node. Yep. Let me check here. JSX, of course, React JSX. You can jump. You can skip this if you want. We got module again. ES next actually. Modular resolution declaration. We're going to set that to true actually. We need emit declaration only true, yeah, true. And source map is going to be false. We're going to need outdir to be dist. So the output directory is going to be dist. Next, we're going to need declaration dir unless I did not specify that. We can set that to actually did. Sorry, dist. Let's see, allow synthetic default imports to be true. Interop also. Is module interop to be true. Force consistent. Yeah, of course we need strict. This is strict. Could be true. Skip leg check is gonna be true. All right, can't type. Lib. Oh, sorry, base URL is going to be just a dot, and we're going to need some paths as well. These are just going to be some autocompletes, and we're going to call these lib, or this one lib, and it's going to be a directory reference to our lib folder. The lib folder is going to be where all of our components and all of our logic is going to live for our library, essentially. And this is where the different tsconfig files differ. We're going to include playground, and we're going to include lib. That's it. That's this is what the tsconfig file is going to be doing. Next, we can just copy this and create a tsconfig build.json. It's going to be exactly the same, but we're going to remove playground. This is so that we don't build in the playground into our actual output. Cool. So now that we open up our playground, we can see that it's not going to complain about our React references. And it's going to be strict, so it's going to reference this to be argument type null is not assignable to container. We can just use as HTML element, thank you, cursor. And that's going to fix that for us. Now we're going to add our first script. We're going to call this playground. You can call it dev if you want. If you're used to that, that's fine. And we can save that, and we can run playground. I'm still used to dev. We can open up 5173. You can see we got the hello world. So now we got Vite running, and that's great. Next, we're going to actually start to create our component now that we have our playground running. So in our source code, we're going to add the lib folder. And in our lib folder, we're going to create a main.ts file. This is going to be our main import and export file for now. You can, of course, use splitting, so you can split up different import exports for your library, so you can export icons separately, components separately, core files separately, and so on. We're just going to use one file for now for the simplicity of it. Next, we're going to create a components folder. And in our components folder, we're going to create our first component, that is button. Now button is just going to be our button. Nothing fancy. It's going to return button. That's it. Now this is what we can do here. First of all, let's create a interface called button props, and we're going to say they're going to be extends, and we're going to grab button HTML attributes. It actually wants to do that. I usually use HTML attributes, but you can actually use, I think, button HTML attributes. So let's use that then. And we're going to start by grabbing the children from that, and we can paste the children in here. Essentially what we've done now, and of course we can do props and add the props. Thank you, cursor. This allows us to extend our button props, the usual classic button props, as in the attributes that the button component, the classic HTML button component needs, and add on our own custom props on top of that. So, for example, we're going to need variant, we're going to need size and theme. That's something we're going to add on as we go along here. So this is exactly what we're doing, and it's pretty nice that TypeScript allows us to do this. But now we have our button.tsx file, right? In our main, then we can import button, and button is actually the default export, and the type button props from our button. export default function. Thank you. And then we can export button type button props. So you can see here in our main, then you can now import button and the button props directly from this file. This becomes sort of our collection file for our components in this case. Great, so now we can actually get the button inside of our app. So all we got to do now is go up here, import the button from the library. Actually, I think we should be able to do this now. lib/component main. Oh yeah, that's true. We haven't even configured Vite, that's why. So let's just do lib main for now. And let's just use button hello world. And let's change that to button instead. So now that we've done that, Vite should update and we can see a button. Awesome. It's working. That's awesome. Now that we mention it, we need that Vite config file simply so that we can get the vanilla extract running, our CSS processing, and we want that little alias as well, which is kind of nice. So in our root, we're going to create a vite.config.ts file. In here, we're going to grab some dependencies, define the config. Yes, we're going to do that. We do have a plugin for React, so that's going to grab right there. Thank you, Cursor. Thank you, Cursor. You're pretty good. This is actually not correct. You're going to import it as a variable or function like that. Destructure, I mean, and then we're going to need the resolve as well because we want to resolve our path or the alias. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to do lib here as well. It's going to point to, I think, lib like that. That means that we should be able to do this now. No? Let's see. Lib should point to lib. Something might be wrong here. I'm not sure. I think this looks, sorry, I forgot the $. That's why it's complaining. That explains that, and I think Vite shouldn't need this. I think it should be good. I think it should, let's see. Yeah, it's all good. Cool. Okay, now that we've created our button, we need to start styling it the way that we want it. So we're going to create our first style file, and these are created as .css.ts files for vanilla extract. We're going to check out our dependencies for creating our first style. We can call this button. You can see how fast Cursor is for suggesting code for you. It almost writes it for you as you go along, which is really, really nice. Just to demonstrate how easy this is to work with the styles, I'm just going to create a regular classic class inside of our file here. I'm going to import it. See, Jesus, I love Cursor. All as styles actually. So we're going to import all as styles, and we're going to grab our button here and add class name styles button, and that's it. Now it should be red. Yep, it's red. That's awesome. Great. So now that we've done that, we're going to create a first recipe. Now, recipes in vanilla extract is sort of a way to create variants. The variants for the buttons are, of course, what I'm talking about here is the variants we created here. So we have a light version and we have a dark version, and inside of both we have 3 variants. We have a primary, secondary, and a tertiary. Tertiary means third. So these 3 versions or variants are what we're going to build now, and they vary a little bit between the light mode and dark mode, as you can see. So you're going to see how we're going to transfer that over into our component. Cool. So now that we've done that, we can actually create the first recipe. So we're going to import recipe from recipes, and we're going to change this to recipe. I don't know why you want to do that, but that's basically it. Recipe contains a base. Now, base is essentially a style, a class. So you can create a style outside of our recipe, and you can reference that base. You can reference that inside of our button base or our button recipe, like that. So it's essentially a style. You can create it directly inside the recipe, or you can create it outside as a style. Doesn't matter. We're not going to bother with that, so we're just going to create a base. And then you have your variants. Now these are the 3 different variants that we have in place right here. We have primary, secondary, and tertiary, right? So I want to call these variant. So we have primary, secondary, and tertiary. These are the 3 variants. Now we have more variants than this. We call it a variant, but really it's a style or a look. But we also have sizes, right? So we have 4 different sizes. I want to call these XL, L, medium, and small. So we're going to add size, and we're going to call them X large, large, medium, small. Great. And then we also get completion for default variants here for primary and medium. I think that looks really good. Now, we haven't really done much in terms of styling, but we have created the framework for how the button should be designed or built based on the design, I mean. So first of all, we're going to add some color to it, I think. The color really depends on the variant. So we're going to need to set a variable. And the variable for this case will be background color. So we're going to use something called create var. We're going to call it background color because if you use the name here the same as the key or the style property, then you can easily just use it as the property in our base here. Background color. Right now, this is set to absolutely nothing. What we need to set it to is the specific color that we want to use for the different variants. Now you do this by setting vars. And vars are set like this within brackets. And then we're just going to grab our color code directly from Figma, like that. Now we want to do this the same for our secondary and our tertiary. But in this case, we want to use transparent for secondary and for tertiary, like so. Nice. Great. That's pretty much it for our recipe in terms of structure. And now let's see if we can change, get the color to change by changing the variance of the variant. So now that it's a recipe, you actually have to instantiate it. And you do that by handling it as a function. And you throw in the variant as values, as the props. So variant and size. Now here is the powerful thing. What these are types. You can use these as references in our button props. You can create a prop that is equal to the actual variant types or the variant props, or you understand what I mean, you get it. So what you can do then is called a recipe variant. This is essentially what you do. What this means is that you have button variants. This creates both variant and size for us. And we can use it in here, but we need to change it from interface to type. Now we can no longer use extents. However, we can use it this way. I'm not sure I can do that though, but exactly. This is what you can do. And then you use variant size. There you go. So what we've done now essentially is that we have mapped these specific property values or property options to be properties of our button. Meaning that when we now open our app, you can see that the button color is green. And if we go into our app, we get autocomplete for which variant that we can use. For example, you can use primary, or let's see here, primary, secondary, or tertiary. Tertiary means that it's essentially see-through. It's just white. And the same thing goes for secondary. So let's keep using primary then. That looks fun. let's just quickly reset the style as well for us. So we're going to change the appearance to be none. We're going to set outline to none. I'm not sure if it has any margins at all. I don't think so, but it has a border. And actually border we're going to add. So we're just going to do this quickly, and we're going to set border to 0 pixels for now. So that it's just very simple. Cool. Next, we're just going to quickly add the fonts so that we get some fonts into our app. You can do this however you want. I'm going to just drop these into our head. This is usually the preferred method, but you can use the classic CSS import URL as well. Doesn't matter, but I'm going to use it this way. I'm going to throw it in here into our HTML file. Cool. And now if I want to use inter, just grab the font file, family, sorry, and add this as the value for our font, like so. So now we should be using inter for our font family. Yep, inter, nice. Next, I want to add some size before we can finish off the styles for our button. We have 4 different sizes. They differ in height and different padding inside of the button. So we're going to set the height first of all. So let's see. We're going to add const height as a var, as we did before. And we're just going to add, let's move these up so we can have an overview of the vars as their own properties here. So we have height, and obviously we're going to set vars inside of all of these, but it's not going to be background color, it's going to be height. The first one is 48, 40 is the second one, 32 is the third one, and 24 is the final 4th one. So it's going to be 48, 40, 32, and 24. Yeah, thanks, cursor. Now we have the sizes in place. After auto-completing that, that should give us the correct sizes, and we can test it by simply changing the size to X large, for example. You can see the height changes. Nice. After we've set the height, we can add the padding. Now the padding is only on the right and left side, so it's not going to be top or bottom. But we can essentially just set padding equals as a var again, and autocomplete padding. Now for the large size, it's going to be 24 on each side, but 0 pixels on the top and bottom. 16 on the large, medium is going to be 12, and the small is going to be 8. Seems like I've chosen a system that is widely used usually. Nice. So now you can see that the paddings change definitely depending on which size you use. So we can change that to regular large. You can see that it's slightly smaller. Yeah, you can keep changing to see that it actually changes. We can add our border radius. It's going to be 4 pixels. Border radius is going to be specifically 4 pixels. That's for all of them, so it doesn't really matter that we change it there. Cool. And let's just change the font size as well to 18 pixels. So it's on the large one, I mean. So let's add font size as a var. Let's add it here. It's going to be 18, not 16. Here. Let's see, cursor 16, 14, and I'm pretty sure it's 14 and 12. Let me double check that real quick. 14 and 12, yeah, correct. Font weight is always going to be 500, so let's set it to 500. Color is going to be by style, so let's just keep this for now. And I think that's it for the actual size differences. It's going to be height, padding, and font size. That is what differentiates the different buttons. Cool. Now that we've done that, let's keep adding more style changes to this button. What I'm interested in is adding the differentiator between the 3 buttons, which is the border. And the border is going to be maintained on all 3, but it's going to be transparent. And the border width on the one that actually has the border is 2 pixels, so it's always going to be 2 pixels. So we can change this to border width 2 pixels, border style solid. And the border color is going to be a var. We set it like this. Next, we're going to just add the border color, and it's going to be transparent for both the primary and the tertiary versions. Since the border is never visible, but it is there, right? So we want the border width always, because when you change the colors, we don't want the border to actually animate in width-wise. We only want to animate it in color-wise, or opacity if you wish. So that's why we keep the width on all the buttons. So this is going to be really no big change, but if we do check secondary, you can see that there is actually a border. The color is obviously wrong. So if we add border color, and that border color is going to be correct, this one, you can see very nicely that the border color is correct. Cool. Next, now that we have the border color, we might as well add the actual color. So let's go up and add our color. Color, and our color is going to be white on primary. Secondary is going to be correct, cursor, thank you. And it's going to be, I think, white. No, actually, incorrect. It's going to be the same as secondary on tertiary. Nice. So if we do change this to primary, it should look as designed. Cool. Now we need to add some hover and disable state, I think. So let's go ahead and add the hover. Now this is where you can do some more fun stuff. You can do background color as your object. So really, since you're using TypeScript, you can set this to be background color as an object. Then you can do, sorry, that's wrong syntax. Default like that as create var, and you can do this essentially. That's what you can do. To me, it doesn't really matter what you do. I like the autocomplete of using background color like this, but I mean, you can do whatever you fancy really. So let's do the hover state. So let's do background color, hover, and active and disabled. Let's add those right away. Let's move down the colors actually, since these will differ depending on the states. Now this is what's nice about cursor. It just adds these automatically for me when I tab. So nice. Okay, so now you can just do hover like this, and you add these values as the variables, right? That's it. Now here you can see that we automatically get autocomplete for all of our styles here, or our variables, which is really nice. Let's go into our hover, grab the correct background color, hover, and the correct active state, and the disabled state. Oh, Jesus. Like so. So when you hover, you can see and press that it actually works. Nice. Now we want to add the same thing for secondary and our tertiary. Now in our secondary, we're actually going to change both the border color and the background color. So border color is going to be initially that, but the hover is going to be correct, that one, and our color is going to be that one, correct. But the actual background color is going to be RGB, because we want to use transparency, right? So it's going to be 4, 159, and 22, 0.1. There you go. Now the background color is going to be the same as our primary on active, and disabled is going to be the same as well. That looks good. Our border color is going to change on our active as well here, which it did. That's nice. And let's keep our border color to the same on disabled. You can do transparent, you can do disabled, background color, it doesn't really matter. And our color for our disabled state is going to be this. And our color for our active state is going to be white. Sorry, color active white. And our color for pressed or hover, I mean, is going to be that. And our border color is correct. Yeah. So now I think secondary is done. I forgot about the color on disabled here, but yeah, I fixed that. Cool. So tertiary, finally, the third version. We can make sure that the background colors are correct. So the hover state on here is going to be the same as the secondary one, so we can just copy this one over. And the background is going to be this one, and the same for disabled, for border as well. Border is going to be transparent. There's no point in adding the color there between the transparent and the disabled. And let's see, color is going to be this. That's correct. Color hover, correct, I think. Yeah. Color active is going to be white, and color disabled is going to be this one. Nice. So now I think we are good. We can go ahead and check secondary. Yeah, that looks kind of nice. And tertiary. What does that do? Yeah, that looks good. We can also do the disabled state. Disabled. And it works. Nice. Primary looks the same. Secondary looks the same. Nice. That's awesome. So that means that our basic styles for the button, I think, is done. We can add a transition, which is a little nice touch before we move on. So transition is going to be on background color, the color and color. Yeah, that works. Actually, oh yeah. I think ease is a bit ease. It's less poignant. Yeah, I like that. Cool. So now the actual button styles for the regular version, or the white version, the light version, I mean, is done. And we might want to add the dark version. Now, this is where we get into building a theme context, or a theme provider is what it's usually called. A theme provider uses the GitHub context in order to create a state that you can use as a hook in our component. And that hook provides a default state, and then you can override that state with, whichever state the library provides. So we can do that. Let's go ahead and create the hook. In our folder, let's call it core. And in core, let's create a theme provider. A theme provider is going to be a React component, because it is going to export an actual provider. And the provider is going to wrap the component contents, or the component app. It's going to wrap our app, the contents of our app, using the provider and the context. So by default, let's export theme provider. Theme provider is just going to contain the children, really. So there's no point in creating a custom interface for that. And we're going to create a context. So first of all, let's just import create context. We're going to use context. We're going to need use state, and I think use effect as well, because we're going to have to react to changes. Before we create the context, we want to set up the types. So let's create a type for the theme that we're going to use. It's going to be light or dark, obviously. Those are the two different light themes that exist. But we're also going to need a theme setting. But the theme setting is what you, as a user, can define to be your preferred setting to either adhere to the setting of your system, your computer, that is the system setting, or you can specify specifically that you want light or dark always. So we're going to call that type theme setting, being system, light, or dark. That's pretty much it. Next, we're going to create the actual type for the context. Let's call that an interface context. And it's going to contain the theme. It's going to contain the setting as well. And it's going to have a themes set theme and a set theme setting. That's pretty much it. Yes, that's it, exactly. And next, when you create the actual context, we can provide the type here, theme context, and we're going to set it by default. So the theme is going to be light, and theme setting is going to be system, and then just classic empty functions for the rest of the values. Cool. This is sort of the base that we need. And the default export, or the actual return value, is going to be theme context.provider. And it's going to contain the values, the default values that we had. Just like so. Actually, sorry. No, I'm so incorrect. We need to set these up as functions, the actual values. So we're going to change these, but we're going to keep these for now. So first of all, let's create the state for theme. Thank you. And the theme set. Thank you. So the defaults are light and system, so that's fine. I think so, at least. Yeah, it's fine, but we actually, yeah, let's keep it like this for now. We're gonna fix this. Sorry, we're gonna fix this. And then we're gonna have a function called set theme for the theme and set theme setting, just like so. And then we can remove these as values and instead be references. I think it looks better if we can do it this way. Yeah. Exactly. These are going to be set internal and set internal theme. Because this actual state, even though it's exposed, the actual changing of the theme value or the theme setting value is going to be internally controlled inside of the provider. You're going to understand why in a second. Now that we've done that, we want to make sure that we can actually listen to or react to whenever the system that uses the component library changes the theme. And we're going to use window match media for this. So first, we're going to need an initial theme. That's going to be set as light. And theme is the type. And we also need to cursor stop. That's wow. Sometimes cursor just goes bananas. I love cursor, but sometimes it just wants to do its own thing. Theme setting is system. This is going to be system theme. Now, these three different values represent, this is the initial theme, obviously, for our app. This is what the system uses. It's usually light, but it can also be dark. It's going to change if it's actually is dark. And the initial setting is going to be system. Right, so if window is defined, we can not use local storage, thank you. We're going to do that in a second. Initial theme is not cursor is going to be window.match media. Prefers color scheme dark matches, then it's going to be dark either light. So if the match media matches, meaning that the the preferred color scheme is dark, then it's going to be dark. Otherwise, it's light. And initial system theme is going to be, well, the same thing. So this means that we are, by default, listening to what the system says. Great. But what if we want to actually store this setting that the user uses in local storage so that we can actually, when we reload the app, keep the setting and keep it set to dark or light? Well, then we can store it. So we're going to grab the stored setting, window.localstorage.get item theme setting. That's theme setting. We can actually set it to theme setting. I like it that way. If stored setting, then initial setting is stored setting as theme setting. Actually, you don't need that. And if initial setting is equal to system, then you set the initial theme to initial setting. Right, is not equal to system. So if the initial setting, if the stored setting is light or dark, then we want to set the initial theme to exactly that. Otherwise, we want to keep it as is because it listens to the system, obviously. Hope that makes sense. Now that we've done that, we can set initial setting. This is what it's supposed to be. And we're going to need system theme. And we don't really need, oh, we can keep it like that, yeah. Cool. So what system theme is, as I said, this keeps track of what the system's theme is set to. Why we need that is because when the user changes the theme setting between light and dark over to the system, we want to change the theme back to what the system is set to. So if, for example, the user in the app wants to use dark mode and his computer is on light mode, then he changes it to dark mode. Then the system theme doesn't change. The value of system theme is still light, but the actual theme, initial theme and the initial setting changes to dark. When the user then wants to change back to use the system setting, he sets the initial setting or the system setting to, the theme setting to system. And the initial theme will then pick up whatever the system theme value is. Hope that wasn't too complicated. Cool. Now we've got sort of the basics set up, set internal theme. So these two functions, the set theme and the set theme setting, is going to call the set internal theme settings. And it's also going to set the local storage of theme setting to theme setting. And if theme setting is not equal to system, then of course we want to set the internal theme to that setting. So if we do decide to set the setting to light or dark, then we want to set the actual theme to light and dark. That's pretty much it. There's two more things we're going to add to this before we are done. We're going to need a use effect for watching when the media changes or the match media changes, and we also need a use effect for whenever the theme setting and the system theme changes. So let's start by watching theme setting and system theme. Excuse me. So the theme setting is equal to, if the theme setting is equal to system, then we want to set the internal theme back to system theme. That explains it. That should be theme. Yeah, sorry, that was obviously not correct. Yeah, and now we've done that, we need to actually set the internal system theme, right? So we're going to use effect. and it's not going to be reacting to anything, but it's going to add a watch or an event listener. So window.match media. First color scheme, we're going to change that to light. And let's see, add event listener change. And we're going to call a function called match media callback. What we're going to get is a media query list event, I think. Yep. We're going to add that there. And then, of course, we need to clean up after ourselves in our use callback. So we're going to remove the event listener there. Cool. The const theme is equal to e.matches is either light or dark, because we are actually matching towards light. And then we want to set internal system theme to that. That's it. With this theme provider, then, we can actually control the theme and allow the user to decide whether or not to use light or dark or system settings. And of course, we want to export a hook for this. And we do this simply by exporting a variable or constant called useTheme that exports or exposes the context. That's pretty much it. Now in our main here, we can do import theme provider and useTheme and then just export that. Like that. So in our app, we're going to import theme provider. Add our button. And it shouldn't change at all. Nothing should change. However, if we jump into our button, we import useTheme. We grab the useTheme and we just log theme. You should see light. There you go. And if we go into our app here, let's say we want to have a select component, and we want to change the theme setting for it. So let's say system, and we add all these. Yeah, I should expose or export the theme setting as well. I forgot that. We should export, sorry, here. Theme setting, and theme context, sorry. And then just add those there. See if that works. That's weird. Export type theme is exposed. Oh, yeah. There you go. So if we change this to dark, it should change to dark, but it doesn't. Go here. Doesn't trigger. Okay, that might be what is wrong. Let's create a function instead. What am I missing? Oh, I can't do this inside of here. Sorry, I just forgot. I can't do it inside of the app because the app doesn't have it within the context. It actually has to be done within a child component. I forgot about that completely. So let's just create an index.tsx file. Sorry about that. Let's see, export default function page. Let's call this just a page. Return just a regular page. Actually, let's put these in this, like so, and move all of this in here, and move that in there, remove pretty much all of it, except for this, and then pages, import page from there, and then page. This should work. Yay, it works. Amazing. And if we reload, it's dark. Woo, amazing. And then we can set the value to theme setting, actually. Amazing. There you go. Now you can actually, you can see it's dark, always dark. If we change this to light, it's always light. Let's change this to system, it's back to light. Now, if we go into system settings, appearance, we change this to dark, you see that it's now dark. However, if we change this to light, it's always light. None, doesn't really matter if we change the theme, it's always light. Yep, cool, huh? Great. So now that we've got that going, we can actually fix our button so that the button has a dark and a light version of itself. And to do that simply, I would actually create a base style for 2 different variants and use these different variants depending on what the theme is. So the theme here is what we're going to use as the prop, but we're going to move out our base style, like I said before, as a style. And that style is going to be this. Like that. We're going to have style here. Cool. So we got the base style there. Nothing has really changed, but this is now going to be our light button. We're going to create a dark version of our button. We're also going to create a size variants. I think we're going to move those out to their own object where we're going to have the sizes defined, so we don't have to define them twice. So we're going to just do let's see, sizes is equal to this. And then we're going to do size equals to sizes. There you go. So this is now essentially just our light button. And we're going to copy this and change that to be our dark button. And instead of exporting them, we're going to, sorry, let me see an error there. We're going to export light as light button and dark as dark button. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to change this to light button. It doesn't really matter which one you use here because they're both the same. They have the same variants. But we're going to expose this or export this as button, where you have two different variants, light or dark, different themes. So now you can just throw in theme, and then you're going to get the right button. Now, it's not going to change yet because we haven't changed the actual variables for the dark mode. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to jump in here and grab our background color for dark. So background color there, background color there, background color there, and background color there. Border color doesn't change. The color is still white except for disabled. That's that. The secondary, we're going to change both the border color and the color. So the background color is still going to be transparent, border color and the color changes. Here, the border color and the color changes on hover, border color and color, and the background color also changes. So the background color is now going to be 0, 128, 97, and still 0.1. And then in the active state, background color is going to be this color. The border color and the border color is still going to be, sorry, the color is going to be white. The border and the background color is going to be the same. And the disabled is going to be the same as the primary with a new color and a new background color. Nice. And then the tertiary, we have transparent with a new color. We have different color on the hover. Color there. The background color being the same as the secondary. We're going to copy that, paste that. And then we have the active color, background, I mean, this. And color is going to be white. Background color is there. That's going to be white. And the color on the disabled is going to be cool. I think this should change now. Yep. Nice. It does change. That's awesome. That's really cool. So we can do a small thing just to make this a little bit more, give it more of an effect, I think. What is the simplest way to do this? I think, since we do have the plugin in place for Vite, I did add this. We can actually use vanilla extract to make this a little bit simpler. Let's make this div. And we have to still create an index.css.ts file. I'm sorry, that's just how it works. We're going to create a recipe or a page with a recipe of a base with a width of 100 viewport width, right? Viewport height doesn't really matter, and we're going to do variants, theme, light, dark, and we're going to do, this is wrong, or don't need the style, mouse background color, thank you, and we're going to set the bars. We're not going to use black though. going to use this one. Just to get some effect, I think. There you go. Nice. It actually works pretty well. Awesome. That's great. So we can remove some console logs, and we can consider, I think, this to be a successful implementation, and we can actually commit this up and try to use this in a Next.js app, which is going to be kind of cool. But we're also going to need to build the library. So that's what we're going to do next. But first, let's just do this. Build the component library with a button and a ThemeProvider. There you go. So we can check Git. Yep, it's updated. That's awesome. We can check through our to-do list here. We can see that we have done all of these things. Now we have two things left. Install in a Next.js app from our repository and demonstrate the symlink and how to test and build locally. Should be fairly quickly, I think, but we'll see. Okay, so if we're going to build this, as I said in the beginning, we're going to need a rollup config. Now, a rollup config is, like I said, custom because Vite doesn't make it super simple to customize the config when you're using in library mode. So I'm just going to do this by hand because it makes it a lot easier to work with. So the first thing we're going to do is drag in our dependencies, right? So these are all the plugins that we're going to use when we're going to parse through our TypeScript and our React code as well. It is TypeScript, obviously, duh. And I'm just going to copy over the config file that I created as a sort of a prerequisite for this to save some time for us. But I'm going to explain what it does, obviously. So first of all, we're going to bundle the main TS file. That's pretty much it, what we're going to do. We don't need to do anything else. Now, the main TS file contains everything for us, as we have done so far, button and the theme provider, so we can import everything from there. What we're going to make sure is that we externalize React, React DOM, and the React JSX runtime. This is so that we don't bundle these along our JS files, so that when you import it, you also import React. We want the consumer of the component library to have React and React DOM installed for us. We're going to use plugins like Resolve to resolve the node dependencies. We're going to use CommonJS to adapt the code for CommonJS. We're going to use TypeScript, obviously, to parse the TypeScript or transpile the transcript for us. TypeScript, I mean. Vanilla extract for externalizing the CSS into CSS files or CSS code. Terser to, I think this minifies, I don't remember. And I forgot the bundle CSS emits. This is a custom function or plugin that I built because the trick with vanilla extract plugin is that it does not create a single CSS file for you. It actually creates TypeScript or JavaScript files for the CSSs separately for the components, and I want to bundle them together. So that's why I created a very, very simple function for this use case that I'm going to copy in here, and I'm going to explain to you how it works. So this is bundle CSS emits. It's a small custom plugin, and we're going to run that at the end. What we're going to do is we're going to pick out the specific imports of CSS TS files or CSS files. And when we do that, we're going to read them in from the bundle, and we're going to create their own CSS file where we bundle them together into their own styles.css file. And we're going to generate that bundle here. That's pretty much it. All of that you can see in the GitHub repository. And that's it. What this does, it's going to create a JS file. It's going to be in modules, ES modules, I mean. And as I said, it's going to deal with our asset file names and our CSS files for us by emitting them from the actual bundle. And at the bottom here, you can see that we also manage our types. Nice. So if we go over to our package.json and we create the build script, it's going to look not like this, but like that. So we're going to remove our, sorry, that's wrong, the dist folder, and we're going to run the actual build script using rollup-c. So that's going to come grab the config file here and run rollup for us. So if we run npm build, it should have run, but oh, I forgot. We need to add type module to our package.json. And it's going to complain, I think, for it's going to work, but it's going to complain a little bit for the types, I think, but it's going to work. Here you can see our styles.css file. This is all of the styles that our vanilla extract created for us. Very nice. And here is our actual logic for ThemeProvider and our button. That's pretty much it. Let's just go in here and check. I think this is, yeah, this is TypeScript complaining. I'm not going to care currently about this. This is fine. And yeah, we're gonna roll with it. Did it actually, sorry, did it exit? Sorry, it actually exited. I didn't see that. Looks like it actually works. I think it works. I think we can skip this part for now. I've had to do this before, but it seems like it actually generates the main DTS for us, which that's great. So let's just keep that as is. That's what happens when you try to do a YouTube video. Okay, so now that we've done that, we also need to add some things to make sure that the consumer of the library actually knows where to find the files. So the first thing is add these things, main, module, and types. Main is really only for Node, but I usually add that just for good measure. And then we need to add the exports. And I want to preface or specify this more specifically like that. And we want to add styles.css as well, so you can import the styles like that. That is pretty much it, I think, yes. So if we now git add all, commit that up as build in place, and we push that up. Now, when we push it up, we don't really push up our dist folder because it's actually ignored. So I'm going to do a quick little, how do you want to say, ugly solution for this. It's not really ugly, but I wouldn't recommend this for production code. I would just do this for demonstration purposes, because usually what you do is you publish a library on npm or an internal registry or anything like that. But we're just going to do this in a hacky way in order to demonstrate how this works. So I'm going to create a build script for GitHub, where it's going to check this code out. It's going to build it for us and then commit that to our source code as a dist. So it's going to build the dist for us. That's all it's going to do. So check it out. Set up node version 20, install npm version 9, install the dependencies with the log file, and then build, and then commit the dist folder. That's all it's going to do. So git add all. That should have triggered an action for us. Oh, sorry. Well, it should. It doesn't? Did I misspell something? Oh, sorry, workflows, not workflow. Damn it. Cussing. There you go, workflows. That should have triggered an action. I misspelled workflows. It should run a build and commit. Let's see how it does. Set up node, install pnpm, dependencies, fairly quick. Run the build for us, complain a little bit, but it's fine. Commit the dist. We need to add access to writing. There you go. So go over to actions and we rerun all the jobs. Thank you very much. There you go. It should be even quicker this time, I think. Yeah, there you go. So if we now check the library source, you can see that there's a dist folder, and this is the built dist for our library. All right. Thanks to the magic of editing, I managed to get some time to debug this build, because as you might have seen, there were some warnings, and I figured out that there was some things that I misconfigured. So if we take a look at, first of all, our TS config, we can see two things. First of all, this is the declaration directory. It's set to dist. It's actually supposed to be types. What this means is that when you build the output here, it's supposed to generate a types folder. So that's why our rollup wasn't able to find the types for us. The second thing is actually that the paths here does not have a catch all afterwards, which means that it's not going to catch the imports for us when we're building. We did have it in our tsconfig JSON for the playground, which is why it worked when we ran it locally, but it didn't actually produce the correct output when we built. That was another thing. The next thing, of course, is that we want to generate the types. So we're going to pull that back in. And one final thing is that we're going to add a preamble to our cursor. Now, the cursor is what minifies the whole code. And by adding a preamble, we're prefixing, or basically adding at the top of our file a text. And what we're doing here is adding, sorry, this got a bit cluttered, is that we are adding a text called use client. Now that is specifically for Next.js, because Next.js now has support for server components, which means that components can actually be rendered on the server where it doesn't have access to the use context, for example. Use context is specifically a client logic that uses states and stuff. So we need to preamble that or prefix that to our file. Finally, we need to make sure that the exports are correct for the library, essentially. And you can see that the paths here are absolute in two different ways. It references, well, actually the relative, they're not absolutes. So the relative specifically to this directory, and here we sort of assume that we are in the same directory. So we're just going to ensure that we do not copy in the whole package data, that they are the same, just so that we keep everything the same. Now we're going to take a look at this piece of code here. We do use this lib/core/ThemeProvider correctly, and we don't get any errors, but this was the issue that we had where the use theme couldn't find the theme provider because the build config didn't actually know where @lib was. That's why we added the /catch-all or star specifically. And finally, we can remove this part here and add a semicolon because we don't have any other custom props to our button as of right now. So that is good enough for us currently. So yeah, that should be about it to fix the build issue for us. So we can take a look at our build output by running pm build to see what we get. Now you can see we don't have any errors and the actual types get generated. In our distribution folder, you can see that there's both a main.js and a main.d.ts file. This contains all of the types from our components and our library essentially. And that's what's used by npm and the consumer app when it imports the actual library. And as you can see here, we have the use client as well. Now we can just search for lib to make sure that, yeah, the path does not follow into our output. This means that it actually parses the path correctly when we build. So it's using a relative path, or at least it's using the correct path or reference in our library. But yeah, you don't have to think about that. So let's see, do we have anything to commit? Yes, we do. Fixes to the build. Let's go that. Push it up. And we should see a new build. So I've spent some time to debug this while I was recording, so you're going to see a few builds and some commits here. But yeah, it was kind of frustrating there for a while, but that's the classic situation of programming. And as we see this build, we can see, oh, we actually get an error. Install dependencies fail. Oh, our package lock was not up to date. It might be because I changed it. Oh, there's a, yes, TSX. I don't think that is that used. It might be that we need TSX because that was one of those things that I did. Run build. Let's see if that breaks. No. I think we're good. Yes. I think that should update the lock. Let's see. Let's see. Cool. Running. Let's cross our fingers. Yay. That's awesome. Like I said, I know that this is not the optimal solution to have a dist be committed by the job. There are obviously better solutions like publishing to npm or another registry, like I mentioned before, but this is just to keep us going and getting this working, and then you can improve upon the solution later on. Great. So we can just do a git pull just to get the dist update. there's no update. Oh, that's great. And now we can actually try to install this on Next.js as we want to do in our next to final step. So let's open up the docs for Next.js. Just do a classic create next app. Should be fairly quick. Next app. Yes. I don't care. You just need something to get started with. Taking a little bit longer than I expected. Now it's using npm. Let's just use npm for the sake of this app. For this example, let's open it up in Cursor. Okay. So it's installed all the dependencies. We can just run dev to see that it runs. Yep, it's working. Great. So let's just simplify it a little bit. We'll just remove all this clutter here. Like that. Just do let's actually add a button with hello. Just like that. So we can have something to compare with. Great. Now that we have the Next.js running, we can actually install our library. And you can actually install libraries directly from a Git repository using the specifically HTTPS URL. You do so by just using that in your install command, but you remove the HTTPS with Git. So you got git : / and then the path or the URL to your Git repository. And this works, of course, with GitHub as well as with GitLab or any other Git repository host. So now you can see that it's installing, it's loading, there you go. Great, got it installed. And first of all, as you remember, we wanted to use a theme provider. We installed a theme provider. We can see that it wanted to import Inter. So we can actually see if we can install or get from Google. Yeah, nice. Might be that we want to do that. We don't want to use these fonts either, so let's just remove that. And I think it's inter.classname, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, let's look at that later. First of all, let's just get this working. So first of all, import theme provider from not from there, but from component library. That looks okay. And wrap that inside, or get in children wrapped into the theme provider. And let's just see if that runs. Yep, nice, it runs, that's great. So now that we got the theme provider in, we can just import the button from component library and use that instead. Okay, works. Finally, we want to import the styles. So we do that by importing component library /styles with an S, .css. Ooh, interesting. Oh, did I do dist? Oh, I did dist, that's why. There we go. There it is, the button. Amazing. That's great. So it actually works. And we should be able to change the size to X large. Yep. And variant to secondary. Yep. And it works. Amazing. We could add the inter font. So I think it's Next.js inter font. Components fonts. This was super, yeah, exactly. So you just set the weight for it. I'm guessing you could use variable fonts as well, but I think we use 500. I think we only use 500, so let's just use 500 in this case. And then just grab inter and add it to here, and you should be good to go. That should now be the font family inter correctly. That looks right. Yep. That's awesome. Great. So we actually got this working from our Git repository. That's exactly what we wanted. So that's the next to final step. And the final step to this is to demonstrate how you can use symlink to test and build locally. This is super simple. Now we have our local copy of our component library right here. So what we can do with this is use symlink, as I mentioned, to be able to develop and test locally using a consuming app as well. And you do that very simply by just running npm install // to move up one directory and then install component library. Now you can also do npm link, but I prefer to use the install. Doesn't matter which one you use. Checking the package.json, you can now see that we have for component library as a dependency a reference to the folder component library. So we are using the local version of our component library. And since the build is the same, this should just be able to run as the Git repository. It should work just out of the box. Yep, it works. Now, what's neat about this is that you can build the component, you can improve upon it and fix bugs and add features, add fixes and stuff while you're using it inside of the app that consumes the component in production, which is great. So you can basically debug with the consumer app very easily and very quickly, which is why I really like using npm in this way. Of course, you can do this when you have deployed to or published to an npm registry as well. So it's not exclusive to using a Git repository in that way. But I wanted to see if we can actually get the build with a watch step running as well, so that you can see how easy it can be. Because we have this little caveat here, or this property called a build delay on the watch. And this is added because when you don't have a delay on the watch, it's not actually going to be able to pick up the changes as you build. This is actually what I've experienced as I've been using this setup myself. So that's exactly why we have that in place. Now, for the actual build command, for the dev command, it's a bit different from the build command, since the build command is just a one-off thing. So you don't just run the build, but you want to watch as well. So instead of just running rimraf, we want to use a dev command, for example. If you want to use that, you can use whatever. And we still want to do rollup -c, but we add the -w as well. That is the watch flag. So now we're going to watch for changes of our files as we are building our app. So if we run npm run dev, actually we're using pnpm, so let's just pnpm, it's the same thing. So you can see now it's actually producing our build and it's waiting for changes. You can see while we're doing this, Next.js is actually compiling this as well, which means that Next.js is also watching for changes. So it all works seamlessly using symlink, which is really nice. So if we were to go in here, now we're using a secondary button that is xlarge. So let's change xlarge to 52 pixels. There you go. You see the change. It wasn't huge. You can see it. You can see the CSS here, that the size is indeed 52 pixels. You can change it to 10 pixels if you want a dramatic change. There you go. So as we're doing the build actually runs in the background. It's optimized to the change that you're doing. So that's pretty much it. That's how you can get this running with the symlink and test this and build it locally. And that's the video. We have been using Cursor as our text editor. We didn't really use the full power of it because I wanted to show you how you can build this from scratch. You could have used a setup by Cursor, but it requires more time to fix the small things that might be off with the setup, and it might have not given me the exact right setup from the start. But we did get a lot of really good autocompletes and suggestions from it, which I really appreciate. But do know that there's a lot of power to using the chat feature here to ask for suggestions and even asking for a setup, like initial setup for whatever project you're working on, which is really cool. But do keep in mind that you should always know what you're doing when you're using this powerful tool. Next, we also created that setup. We got Vite for the playground. We got Rollup to build the library, using vanilla extract for our CSS pre-processing with using that power of TypeScript, which is real cool. We created the component button using that design from Figma. And we adapted it so we can actually use themes using our theme provider. Finally, we were able to install it in the Next.js app from our repository right here. And the final thing was, of course, demonstrating the symlink and the power of using that to test and build locally. That's it. That's the video. So I really appreciate you watching. The library is right here on GitHub. I will not move it. The link can be found in the description as well. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.